Hey guys, welcome to the Ion Econ. Today we have an extra special episode of the Ion Econ featuring uh, me, Viren, Merl, and as our special guests Mark and Nick. And today we're going to have a ODI draft. Now, a lot of people seem to have the idea that ODI cricket's a bit boring, but we strongly don't believe with that. So here's a bit of excitement and spice adding into the whole ODI system. So before we get into the draft as a whole, just want to get your thoughts, each of you guys, on what you think this draft is gonna entail, what your strategies are going into this, and what you can what our viewers can expect going forward. Want to start with the Viren?
Thanks, Harriet. I like how you introduced my other channel, Ionicon here, but thanks for the double shout on this one. But yeah, looking forward to this draft. I think it's going to be very interesting to kind of see who our 44 players end up being. And as we were discussing off air, I think the challenge here is determining which players fit which positions. I think there are a couple of floaters here who might come into consideration, especially in the middle order. So there are quite a few who have even splits batting at number 5, number 6, etc. So that opens up the pool of players we could pick from. And it's an honor to go up against Mark and Nick, and I hope Merl and I can put on a decent display.
Merl, you want to go ahead?
Sure, yeah. So really excited about this. So I was doing some prep, and the thing that kept coming up for me is I wanted to do justice by some of the older players, because the game is not the same. If you measure older players by the same metrics we use today, some of them are probably going to miss out. I think inevitably this is going to happen because both of the stats, but also because of the recency bias that we have. But I did put some conscious effort to make sure that I at least recognize some of the older players. And the other final thing is, I mean, I would have loved to have more fine-grained stats about how different bowlers and batters perform across different phases of the game, death versus initial overs versus how they go through the boring part, quote unquote, between 10 and 40, the dot ball percentages. But like, those are limitations we have to work with, and we probably can't rectify. But looking forward to this, really excited.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point you brought up there about past players. The different kinds of metrics we measure them with now and then, because the game has shifted so much in the past 10, 15 years, even. Thinking of the responsibilities that an opening batsman would have now versus 10 years ago, it's drastically different. The way the lower orders are built, the prevalence of all-rounders, it's completely changed. So, it's interesting to also think about what could have been of our past players in the modern context. What could have a Sana Jayasuriya done in the modern era? So that'll be an interesting thought experiment. Mark, your thoughts, your strategies, your ideas going into this?
I think in some ways it kind of echoes what Mel was saying. I want to reflect my whole period of watching cricket. I think probably more so than any other format, ODI cricket, the tactics around it, and things like strike rate and the run rate have changed quite a bit in the last kind of 30 years or so. Obviously, we're all Sri Lanka fans, so we know that probably more than any other team in the world. So it's kind of like you look back at some of these players and you're like, well, actually, when you crunch their numbers, how would they fit into modern day cricket? And then you think, actually, that's massively unfair, right? Because what they're being told to do when they go out to the crease is totally different would be totally different now to what they were kind of 20 years ago or 30 years ago when they were in their primes. So it's trying to reflect that. I've had many sleepless nights thinking about, can I pick players I never really saw bat that were kind of that I just heard stories on. I don't know. We might end up having to do that. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, completely agree. And Nick, you want to close off the pre-discussion for the day?
Of course, I'm really excited about this. As I said to the guys before, it makes me feel like a real IPL owner, so it's a huge treat. And as the guys touch on, there's this issue over how the game's changed, the recency bias. How do you compare players across eras, which is always really interesting. And I'm also intrigued to see how our Sri Lanka bias plays out during this draft. I noticed that a certain Shakib Al Hassan has superb ODI stats and probably belongs in the best 44 players, but I'd hazard a guess that none of us are going to be the one to pick him.
You've got to worry
yeah.
if you do pick him, the spirit of cricket might swoop down and pluck him out of the team.
Yeah.
You might be left with just 10 players.
Yeah. So before we go into the entire draft, let me just quickly give you guys a rundown of how it will work. So we're going to go through an order with each person. So we're going to go with the first player in your playing 11, the second, third, fourth. So in terms of how you would structure the batting order, and each round the order of who gets picked first and last was going to change completely. So it's difficult to predict and plan according to that. And on top of that, we have a few interesting rules. So the first one is a steal card. So each player, each contestant right now, gets one steal card for the entire round, for the entire game. Meaning that if that person goes, say, third or fourth or second, and the person who's first or picks earlier than makes a really good pick, and you're like, oh, I was really wanted that player in my 11, you have the chance to steal that player from them, but only once during the entire draft. And likewise, you also get a card to protect one player in your entire 11 that they cannot be stolen no matter what. So if you feel that this player is integral to the way your team plays, you can protect that player and make sure that they are safe from everyone's hands. And the third fun rule we have is a free hit. So basically, say we're on the second round, you're choosing your second opening batsman. You can use your free hit and choose your another player from the 11 early on, and have that locked in then and there. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. So once the players are stolen, we'll go to the end of the entire draft and discuss their replacements for each person. So hopefully that clears up things for audiences. And if you're still a bit lost, just follow along and you'll get it eventually. So without any further ado, are we ready to get into the entire draft? All right. So for the first round and picking up the opening batsman, we're going to go with Mark, your opening batsman choice, and why?
I'm going to go with the little master as my opening choice, Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, he's got the stats speak for himself. It's weird, right? Because often you hear people go Sachin, Lara, or have debates around it, and I for one remember thinking I think he stuck around a little bit too long. He was hunting that 100, and potentially that might have had a bit of a negative effect on his averages, but actually he was so consistent for so long. He was brought in as a 16-year-old and he basically hit the ground running. He didn't open to begin with, and he didn't open at the back end of his career, but the vast amount of it he spent as an opener. He's just an incredible player. I kind of feel sad for people who didn't get to watch him in his prime a little bit, actually. And in a way, a lot of what cricket has become now in terms of how big the IPL is, how much money's in it, and how many people around the world are able to earn a good living from it, and the way, particularly in India and in across Asia, how kind of revolutionary a career in cricket can be in terms of the exposure, the money you're going to make. A lot of that is built off Sachin's back in a way, because he was the global superstar. He was the top player for India for so long. It created a market. We all remember that famous Pepsi advert, or all the famous Pepsi adverts that he was in. And he created cricket as the world's, let's be honest, second biggest sport, right? And I was having a conversation with someone quite high up in cricket the other day, and we were talking about how actually, in many ways, a lot of cricket doesn't work. The only thing that keeps cricket afloat is India, right? And you could kind of go, rewind that all back and go, actually, the only thing that keeps cricket afloat is Sachin making it so popular in India. While it's my pick, and I know this is quite early on, I want to also use my free hit as well. because for me, I think you got to start well up top, and then everything else builds around it. And for my second choice, I'm going to pick. I think someone I used to always think of as Sri Lanka's little master, though maybe the comparison is not quite right. But it's somebody who's still very relevant in the way cricket is played in Sri Lanka, what we expect of our players. And also somebody you could argue, again, like Sachin, changed the game all over the world. It's Sanachai Surya. I think this was the original opening partnership for the Mumbai Indians, possibly, right? When they first started. Yeah. And, Sanath, what a player, right? I often think of Sanath as and what he says and what he does is the kind of soul of Sri Lankan cricket, right? When he's upset with the performances, we're all upset with the performances. When he gets to social media or goes on TV and bigs someone up, we all think like, yeah, that person is the next big thing. I mean, his impact on cricket outside Sri Lanka has been tremendous as well. When we won the '96 World Cup, and I was too young to appreciate the finesse of someone like Aravinda de Silva, he was the person that caught my imagination as a child, coming up to the crease and just smashing the ball around. And also, what I like about this partnership is, if kind of Sanath ends up, scoring 20 off the first 4 overs and getting out the power play, then Sachin will stick around. It feels to me like quite a modern partnership, right? A finesse player and a big hitter. So that's going to be my top 2. Is there anyone can lock them in, or are they susceptible?
They're still susceptible unless you opt to protect one of them.
Oh, gosh. You're asking a Sri Lanka fan, he can protect one of the greatest players of all time and our greatest hitter of all time. I'm going to have to, charity starts at home, as it were. So I'm going to have to protect Sanath, I think. So those are my 2.
So Mark has
big
really
early.
gone.
I wanted to start the power play off well, lads. Get ahead of the strike rate.
Start as you mean to go on. He's not messing around. I like it.
All right. So we've had 2 picks from Mark this round. And our next chooser will be Nick. So your first choice for the draft.
At last, give someone else a go, Mr. Machado. Okay, I am going to keep things in South Asia, and I am going to pick Rohit Sharma as my opening batter. Potentially a controversial choice, but I think no one's got more World Cup hundreds. He's got 7, and he averages 61 in World Cup. So he's turned it on at the big moments, right? He scored 5 in 2019. It's easy to forget because India didn't make the final, but I think he was probably the best player in that tournament. He's been outstanding again this year. Showing a kind of new element to his batting, really getting things going in the power play. He's got 3 double hundreds, which I don't think anyone else matches. So yeah, you could say he's batted at the easiest time for opening batters, but I think you can't argue with the body of work that Rohit has produced over the course of a decade. All he's got left to do is win a World Cup, right? Which I feel may well happen in the next couple of weeks.
Great choice. So we're sticking with openers from Mumbai, which is a very interesting kind of trend. Apologies for the Draft King kind of mega board being switched offline for a bit. We'll get that up running soon. But our next chooser will be Merl, and your first choice.
I don't think we are going to get out of South Asia on my pick either. And this is probably one of my top 5 favorite players of all time in cricket. And I'm considering explosive batting, but also it's not just the batting, we are forming an 11. Yes, so this is arguably the most underrated player of Sri Lankan history. I'm going with PM Dilshan. His stats at the top when he's opening is remarkable. He's scoring at 46 runs per each inning at about 90. And you can't ask for much else. And if when you combine that with you just absolutely shutting down the backward point area and his runouts, his strangling of bowling at the top, he has a very particular role in even in the best Sri Lankan bowling lineup. So I don't think this is a controversial pick, but I'm going with TM Dilshan as my first pick.
That's a great choice. And one thing that's struck me right here is all four choices so far have been people who can also bowl, not just great batsmen. So that's a really interesting tidbit over here. To end off this round, Viren, your choice.
I feel like I'm already lagging, and I feel like I'm already on the back foot here. So I might need to think out of the box here. I'm sorry, Mark, for having to do this, but I'm going to nick Sachin off Mark, and I'm going to use my steel card. Now I think that's the only way we get on a level playing field. Yeah, so I will use my steel card, and I will also opt to protect Sachin. Actually, no, there's no point doing that. Sorry, Hari, no. I'll stick to Sachin as my pick for all the aforementioned reasons. But yeah, this continues the trend of this being a South Asian draft. So I think we'll have to go back to Mark. We'll have to go back to Mark for Mark's first pick, and then we can continue proceeding.
So Mark.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna go for I think I'm gonna go for Ganguly then. I can't remember what his stats are top of my head, but I think it was he's had such an interesting career, right? Because he went from being much loved to much maligned to being much loved again, and now he's in charge of the whole thing, isn't he? And also I kind of think he's a little bit forgotten as well. So yeah, I'm glad to see that I've got a position for him in my 11. I was quite close to using my steel card there, actually.
Yeah, it's Saurav Ganguly is one of those very interesting figures in world cricket. Someone we often forget how great of a captain he was for India to bring in a new kind of energy into a really depleted Indian side. I think when we look at Sri Lanka right now, honestly, it's easy to draw a few parallels to how India were at the turn of the century, and then how they kind of picked themselves up. So very interesting choice there. So we have our first five players actually picked already. And to go into the next round, we ended the first round with Viren. We're going to start the next round with Viren as well. Your second pick for your 11.
I feel like I've exploited the rules at hand. I think it's unfair to go immediately after stealing Sachin off Mark. But I'll take this out of South Asia. We'll go down under for my next pick. I wanted a left-hander. I was torn between Gilchrist and Warner. But I mean, provided that there is a certain someone at number 3 who might be protected / stolen from South Asia as a wicketkeeper, I'm going with the safe bet and having Gilchrist as my opening partner for Sachin, an unsung hero for Australia. We saw what he did to us in 2007, and that Gilchrist-Hayden partnership in the late 2000s defined Australian cricket, and I think was important for Australia. And they had a stacked middle order, but it was that intent and early impetus shown by Hayden and Gilchrist that laid the foundation for Ponting, Clark, Simons, etc. to follow suit. So, yep, our first non-Asian pick in Adam Gilchrist.
Great choice there. Someone who's one of the best wicketkeeper batsmen we've seen in the game. A very explosive batsman, very entertaining to watch. And following the trend of going in the reverse order of the first round, we're going to go to Merl, your second choice for the draft.
Yeah, so I was also tempted to go with a left-handed opener from down under, and I'm probably not going to do it. So I was considering David Warner and Matthew Hayden both, but I don't think I'm going to go with either. But I still want to maintain the left-right combination as well, and I'm going to come to the modern game. And I know the discussions we've been having on whether some of the stats are inflated or not, and I'm considering between Quinton de Kock and Fakhar Zaman. I think I think I'm going to, again, could be a lot of recency bias. I've looked at Quinton de Kock's performance in Australia and New Zealand. They aren't super great. So, I mean, I'm going to decide this like at the very last minute as I'm speaking, as we are processing it right now. So, I think given the body of the work and the amount of matches he's played, so I mean, even though Fucker Salmon's stats are great, we know he went through a period of struggle. Yes, he regained his form, but he's only played 82 games. So I think I'm going to go with Quinton de Kock. I was also strongly, by the way, considering Hashim Amla because he was so prolific. He broke so many records. But yes, I'm going to stick to a left-right combination and go with Quinton de Kock. But I'm also going to do the free hit and pick my third pick.
Things are starting off for a blast.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to love this as well. So this is not his favorite position, or rather most batted position. But interestingly, this player did not bat more than 50% of his time in his other batting position. And this is a legend of the game, probably the one who would like fit seamlessly into the modern era. I'm going with Vivian Richards at number 3. I'm going to lock in.
Sir Viv Richards. Interesting choice. A player that I was born years after his last game, but whenever I used to see old clips of him batting, it was really a really entertainer of the game. Not just from the shots he played, but the demeanor he carried with him to the ground. It's kind of like watching a boxer enter a boxing ring. Has that bravado, has a swagger. I think half the game he's won there itself. So I certainly approve of this choice.
Harry, I'm going to protect him as well, by the way.
Yep, yes. Protected. Don't worry. Yeah, so 100%. I love that choice so far. Continuing the same order, Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling heartbroken right now, Harry. I wanted Gilchrist. I wanted Viv badly. So I'm seeing my perfect team disappear before my eyes. I'm also really keen to have a left-right partnership at the top. I've seen Sanath disappear. I've seen Gilchrist disappear. I had Warner kind of high up my power rankings, but now the time comes to it, I just can't pick him. And so I'm going to go with a slightly heart over head pick. I have to have a Jamaican in my 11. So it's going to be the big man, Chris Gayle. And look, I don't think the numbers quite stack up to how destructive a batter he was. But when he got going, he could really blast teams away from the top. I just had a quick look at his stats, and his last ODI 100 came almost 19 years after his first. And looking through the list of these, I really remember that last one, 162 of 97 against England in the Caribbean. I mean, he could slap shots all over the ground. He was brutal on anything full. He was brutal on anything short. And he bowled some tidy off spinners too. So Chris Gayle's for me.
So with that, we have our first 9 picks chosen already. We had the first round be a very South Asian dominated round, and the second we've gone for a bit more diversity in terms of regions and even eras of players. So to move into the third round, we will kick things off again with Nick. Your first choice, your third choice.
It's going to be hard to look past King Kohli, isn't it? So it's going to be Virat for me. Coming hot on the heels of Sachin with his 49th ODI 100 last weekend. I mean, the guy's an absolute beast, isn't he, in ODI cricket? I think it's his best format by a distance. Averaging 60, close to 60, is he? Won it in 2011, right at the start of his career. He's been a fulcrum of a great India side for a decade. And I think arguably he'll end up the greatest ODI batter in history.
A very, not gonna lie, it is a choice that I expected. I think a lot of you expected, it come into at least one of the 11s in here. I I think what Nick said is 100% right. It's one of his strongest form, and I think his impact in terms of the modern game to show that in the era of switch hits and reverse slaps and all that, you can still stick to your basics. You can bat traditionally and still pound on the big runs and then prove yourself at big moments. To go to the next position, to go to the next pick, we're going to go with Mark. Your choice for number 3.
It's quite a competitive field, this, and there's obviously there's a number of shrunkers you could have looked at. There's a number of players still playing you could have looked at as well, but I think I'm going to go for Faf. He's got really good stats. The other thing about Faf is I feel like he's part of the first kind of clutch of players, and I think all the kind of current batch are part of this as well, where you wonder if their stats might have actually been slightly better if they played in a different era, because they would have ended up playing more 50 over cricket, where Faf doesn't, I think he's played, I can tell you how many actually, 136 ODIs, but if he was born kind of 10 years earlier, he just wouldn't have played anywhere near as much T20 cricket and probably put on at least 60 or 70 more ODIs, I'd imagine. Great player. He's kind of, he puts bums in seats as well. I'm kind of worried about selling tickets for my team, even though I probably don't need to be. And he's going to sell me merchandise as well. And with I think he's got an average of about 55 batted at 3. So yeah, that should keep us in the game if we lose wickets early.
Yeah, I think this might actually come off left field. It's not an obvious choice a lot of us make. Even when you think about great South Africans, a lot of people would go to a certain other player from the tip of Southern Africa in terms of ODI. But I think, Faf du Plessis is one of those amazing players, another really fit player, someone who, has a very particular way in how he plays the game. And a very great choice there from Mark. Next up, we have Viren. Your choice.
Yeah, Harry, I'm going to use my free hit, and I'm going with 3 and 4 together because Nick stole one of my RCB picks at number 3, so I have to go with the other RCB pick at number 4. But before I get to that, so at number 3, it was a toss-up for me between 2 of the most stylish left-handers around, Kumar Sangakkara and Brian Lara. Initially, I thought that Lara had played most of his games at number 4, but stats prove otherwise, with 106 innings at number 3 at an average of 46 and a strike rate of 86. Since I already have my wicketkeeper Adam Gilchrist in there, and I am tempted. I know that it's a toss-up between the 2 as batsmen, but there's no harm in having both Sachin and Lara in the same 11. So I'll stick with Lara at number 3 and have Virat Kohli's RCB brother, ABD at number 4, one of the most prolific ODI batsmen, someone who could change the tempo of an innings, someone who could switch gears effortlessly. Brian Lara at number 3, and one of my all-time white ball specialists and favorites, AB de Villiers at number 4. And that's my free hit as well.
So 2 very explosive picks there for Viren.
Harry, I opt to also protect ABD, so I'm done with all my chips with my top 4 picks. So I choose to protect ABD.
So Viren's gone with a very aggressive start.
For a split second, I saw a glimmer of hope, but then Viren decided to protect.
Yeah, so with that, we have our final number 3, but that number 3 has already chosen his number 3 in Viv Richards, but it would be Merl. Do you think we go to the next round, or you want Merl to get a head start on number 4?
Merl can get the head start on number 4.
Let's go.
Yes, of course, I was going to pick AB de Villiers at number 4. Who wouldn't? Now I'm in a way I'm happy. I think that ADB was picked. Now I have a chance to just pick probably my favorite Sri Lankan player of all time. I don't think his stats back up, and if there's one player in the history of the game whose stats don't do justice to the experience of watching the person and how he would rise to the occasion. So this is how I describe this person to my friend. If you were to pick one player over their career to bat uh, and rack up victories, you would probably pick Virat Kohli or Sachin Tendulkar. If you were to pick someone who wanted to just like hit the ball out of the ground and entertain you endlessly, you would pick uh, AB de Villiers or Chris Gale. But if you had just like one game to protect the fate of the universe, and you were sure that this person was going to show up and put on an absolute show while doing it, you would pick this person. I'm going to go with the Sri Lankan legend Aravinda De Silva.
Aravinda De Silva, very stylish batsman from Sri Lanka, and recent ICC Hall of Fame inductee.
He's going to be inducted on Tuesday. Yeah.
Tuesday, yeah. Yeah. A very dramatic month for Sri Lanka cricket with the ICC. But yeah, very great choice. So with that, we have the third and almost fourth round completed. And anyway, the next round was going to start with Merl and go to Viren. So Viren, do you want to get a head start on number 5, or shall we move on to the next pick?
Sorry, Nick can. So Mark had to go next for the number 4 pick, and then Nick would wrap up the 4th round. So Mark, over to you.
So
I wasn't expecting this player to be available at this point, the way I've done it, and I'm not entirely sure if with positioning he works, but I'm going to try and see if I can sneak in Kumar Sangakkara, because are you saying no, Nick? Is it not allowed?
Well, I'm looking here, Marky, and it says he's played 238 of his 380 innings at number 3.
But he's played 69 at number 4. Which would be within his. Is that within range, right? Because
I'll leave it to Harry, the adjudicator.
I'm slightly petrified. Firstly, he's incredible. We all know he's incredible. And secondly, he's a wicketkeeper as well. So he can, I like players who can do a little bit of everything, right? So he gives me that if I needed it. And if he's available and he's still in the board at this point, then I think I want to try and take him. And also, I kind of feel that when you have these discussions, because of the way he started his career as kind of, I want to say, quite ordinary batter, and then he finishes as an all-time great. And the thing I like to see in it, oh no, I've been told he might not be eligible for number 4. Controversial, isn't it? If not, then I'm going to have to go with another Sri Lankan player, and I'm going to have to pick Michael Bevan. Because even though I know we all say Sri Lankan, I've never actually heard or seen any proof that he actually is. But he's definitely Sri Lankan in this style of play, right? And statistically, he's the best player at 4.
A very fine choice, one from yesteryear. I think one of those pioneers of the kind of finisher idea. A lot of people now associate that with the likes of MS Dhoni, but I think a lot of us forget that Michael Bevan was doing very similar things, putting out amazing innings back in the day. Great choice. And Nick, you get to close off the number 4 round here after calling out one of the earlier picks.
Yeah, sorry about that, Marky. I was calling you out because I wanted Sangha too, and I think, another player who I would have liked to slide in here is Jacques Kallis, but he also played the majority of his career at number 3. So I am going to have to go for, I think, probably a slightly overlooked ODI great in Michael Clarke. If you look at the span of his ODI career, I think he was a World Cup winner on 3 occasions, 2003, 2007, and 2015. He averaged 63 in World Cup, striking at 94, and was, really, a central figure in that golden era Australia team. So, yeah, Michael Clarke is my number 4.
Great choice there. One that not a lot of us would think, and rightly Nick said, a very overlooked ODI legend over there. So with that, we have our top fours neatly concluded. A few of us have exhausted our special powers. A few still haven't touched them. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things go forward. So to kick off the 5th round, we have Mark, your choice for number 5.
Oh gosh, it's getting tricky now, right? Because you've got to start thinking about multi-skill players, who could do what. I'm gonna pick someone who is, I think, talked about a lot in his home country, and is a bit of an icon in his home country, and isn't necessarily talked about as much outside. It's somebody who's going through quite a hard time recently as well, and his best mates are one of my favourite players, Merl. I'm going to pick Andrew Flintoff at 5. I just think prime Flintoff, which actually we didn't get for a huge period, but when he's when he's on fire with the bat, when he kind of do a job at any point, or regardless of how bad the innings is falling apart around him, and quite frequently for England it fell apart quite a lot in that period. But also his bowling as well, him steaming in, especially when if it was against the Aussies, or if he was in some way emotionally tied into the game, then it was brilliant. And on top of all that, he comes across as a really, really good bloke, and somebody who actually genuinely really loves cricket, and is, and that's why I think he brings more than just being a decent 5-bat or a good bowler. I think he brings really great vibes to the team. I can see him and Sanath really striking up a really good chemistry in the changing room, and having lots of laughs and lots of jokes. And maybe both of them might enjoy the food a little bit too much, but we only live once, right? So I'm picking Andrew Flintoff for that. A slightly rogue pick, but there you go.
A great choice there. I think Mark's gone here beyond just the on-field aspect of it, and has gone off-field, thought about how it works as a dressing room, which is a very interesting way to go about things. Andrew Flintoff, again, an Ashes hero, also someone who's really proven his mettle, and someone we kind of see glimpses of in a lot in Ben Stokes right now. So if you're someone who hasn't had the privilege of seeing Andrew play, Ben Stokes is about closest you're going to get to it. So to continue with our 5th batter choices, we have Nick, your choice for number 5.
Okay, so I'm lining up my free hit Harry here. I need a wicket keeper, and I think I need a little bit of punch because I've got a few accumulators. So at 5, it seems a strange time to pick him, as he's going through a pretty miserable run of form. But I'm going to go with Josh Buttler, who'll be keeping wicket in my team. I think that it's, I would have loved to have AB, but Buttler feels like kind of the next best thing. I think over the course of his career, he's averaging a shade under 40, striking at over 117. And I mean, those numbers are pretty unprecedented in terms of ODI cricket. So yeah, Josh Buttler's the man for me at number 5.
And your free hit?
And my free hit is the man of the moment, the big show himself, Glenn Maxwell. I was tempted for another Australian here, but I mean, yeah, you look at what Maxwell's done, specifically what he's done in World Cups, where I think he averages 50, striking at over 160. The first man to score a double 100 chasing, he did it on one leg, not being able to move his feet. He bowls useful off spinners as well. I think he's got 11 World Cup wickets. He's great in the field. And I feel like with Kohli and Clark at 3 and 4, Buttler and Maxwell at 5 and 6 gives me some serious firepower.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be a very, very explosive lineup. You got the, big hitters in the likes of Rohit Sharma, Chris Gale, Josh Buttler, and Maxwell. This is one of those teams, you'd be slightly worried if they were going through a good vein of form here to bowl to. Yeah, 2 very explosive choices from different sides of a very strong rivalry as well. So moving forward with our number 5 picks, we have Merl, and your choice.
Yeah, right now I'm thinking so I have 1, 2, 3. I don't think I have a problem with a lower strike rate, even though they might not hit every ball out of the park. Even Aravinda De Silva, I mean, when he gets going, he gets going. You have no issues of strike rate there. So I'm almost tempted to pick a finisher at number 5, but I don't know that I'm going to pick the person at 5 or 6. So options in my head right now, I'm thinking whether I should also have some bowling infused early in this, some solid bowling infused here, whether it be a bowler or rather fast bowler or a spinner. And I think I'm going to go down under again. Perhaps like might surprise some of you, but I think in his day at this position he was just explosive, and he could also bowl some useful off spin as well. I'm going to go with Andrew Simons.
Love it, Merl.
Andrew Simons, a very interesting pick there. Um, yeah, I think, for me, like watching him, I was obviously way too young to kind of appreciate his gameplay, but um, he was someone who had a very strong presence on the field. You'd always get a bit worried seeing him too much on the crease. His entire demeanor, again, somewhat similar to what Viv Richards achieved in his day. But yeah, a great choice there, and not so popular, but can work a lot as well. And to round out the number 5 picks, we have Viren, and your choice.
Thanks, Harry. I'm surprised he's still in the fray, but all my other options were taken away from me. Arguably England's greatest limited overs batsman, someone who single-handedly won their multiple world titles, Ben Stokes at number 5 for me. Hopefully he passes the fitness test to bowl a few overs as well. So I can get some overs off him. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with the way my middle order is shaping up with AB followed by Ben Stokes. So yeah, that's my number 5 pick.
Great. So we have our first 5 sorted out. So perhaps you could say your specialist batsmen are in your fray. And what's really interesting right here is looking at all 4 of these is all 4 are very formidable sides. If anyone was to face, any individual team was to face any of these 4, top orders, it would send shivers down a bowler's or a captain's spine, which kind of shows you how diverse and how I think abundant we have of really strong players throughout the eras, and how some of them complement people in completely different eras. Yeah, it's great to see. So we're going to start off with our number 6. So moving more into that kind of low order and what in the modern game you'd see all-rounders, people who can bowl a bit as well. To kick off the number 6, again, we have Viren. Your choice for number 6.
I'm going to dangle the carrot here. I think this player might be stolen off me, but I have a few backup options if so. One of the most underrated and yet consistent explosive batsmen in the middle order. I think his record speaks for itself. David Miller at number 6 for me. I know I've had 2 left-handers, Ben Stokes and David Miller, who are very similar, but with Miller on his day, Miller the killer can destroy any bowling lineup. So, yep, David Miller at number 6 for me, but feel free to come back to me if he's nicked off.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree that he's one of those really deadly players. But for some reason, he always gets overlooked when we discuss, tournaments or series. But somehow he always managed surprises, even though we shouldn't technically. So moving on with number 6, Merl, your choice. Are we nicking off Viren, or are we going for a completely different direction here?
So in the middle now, I think I have 3 right-handers on the trot, but I can also start thinking about a finisher. I was considering Hussey, Bevan, and Dhoni to this position as well, but I'm going to steal David Miller.
Ooh. Drama in the draft. So we have Merl kicking off the steal for the middle order over here. So, I don't think we have to go over the reasons again. Someone whose record speaks for itself, and one of the most underrated players, in our opinion. Nick, would you like a head start with your next position, or do we move on to Mark?
We move on to Mark.
Your choice. Yep, Mark. So go ahead. What's
I'm
yours?
petrified. I can't believe he's still on the board, considering I went fourth to pick him. I'm going to pick MS Dhoni at 6. A great leader, a wicket keeper, and somebody who's kind of done it all, and is now in his main role is to work with Sri Lanka's best and brightest young bowlers to make them world class, which is a brilliant position for him to be in.
An unofficial consultant.
Exactly right. Unpaid consultant as well. So Dhoni at 6 for me, please. Thank you.
Great choice over there. It's hard to argue against a choice like that. It's very obvious for anyone who's followed the modern era of cricket, what he's achieved across formats, across tournaments. I think, there hasn't been a single tournament he's gone to where he hasn't, graced the finest of finest levels there. And, someone brings a wealth of experience. And one of those players was a very interesting, a lot of times you question the decisions he makes in the moment. But afterwards, with hindsight, it makes so much sense. But, that ability to think out of the box. And, even the way he bats, it's not very typical to see. And, what's interesting is you have Viren and Dhoni, two very explosive players, very similar kind of players, but people go about it very differently. I think it was Jared Kimber who made the comparison between the two of them. Viren being someone who likes to finish it off early, and MS Dhoni who brings it all the way to the end, really putting the pressure on the bowler. So it's great to see that contrast over there. And Viren, you had a burglary. How would you try to replace this player?
Merl made my life easy by listing out a few options there, and I'm going to have to pick one of them. Mark took South Asia's Mr. Cricket, and I'm going with the Mr. Cricket from Australia, Michael Hussey at number 6 for me. Underrated, and he was a late bloomer, perhaps because of how strong that Australian middle order was at the time. He could have had easily 2/3 more years at his prime if Australia didn't have such a severe concentration of good middle order batsmen. I would say it's a like-for-like replacement with David Miller. But even if we're 3 down, or even if you're 4 down with 25 to 30 overs still to go, I'm quite confident that Hussey could play the anchor role at the start and then accelerate when required.
Great choices over there. 4 different choices. Interestingly, 4 different kinds of generations as well are represented over here. So without further ado, let's move to number 7 and kick things off at number 7. We have Nick, your choice at number 7.
Okay, cool. So my team's looking pretty modern thus far, and I'm going to take things way back to the golden age of all-rounders and pick none other than Imran Khan.
Imran Khan.
Yeah, he offers me, he could bat anywhere from 3 to 7. He was good enough, I think, to play as a specialist batsman for Pakistan. And of course, he's one of the greatest seam bowlers of all time. So happy with Imran at 7.
Great choice over there. And what's also what is striking out to me right now is there's a lot of leadership in that 11 over there. You have multiple captains over here. You have the likes of Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Clark, Butler as well, and even now to this edition Imran Khan. So, you're going to have a captaincy conundrum over here. But anyways, moving forward, Mark, your choice at number 7.
I'm going to go a kind of similar route to Nick. Before Imran Khan, when you went to South Asia and you thought of all-rounders, you thought of the man who did everything in '83. His greatest innings of all time isn't on camera, which shows you, which now when you think about an Indian captain batting not being on camera, you think that's incredible. And I'm going to have to pick Kapil Dev.
Kapil Dev, very, very iconic player for Indians. I think someone who's kind of kick-started the current trend of India's almost dominance in world cricket right now, inspiring the likes of Sachin, and then Sachin going on to inspire the likes of Virat, and then Virat inspiring, just going on, so on and so forth. Two very interesting picks right here from very similar era, 2 similar players, but still quite different in the way they handle things. So moving on with number 7, we have Viren, your choice.
Okay, I know this was not the position he batted in for most of his career, but Jared Kimber's recent podcast covering this player alone was more than enough for me to make him my number 7 pick. Kapil Dev's World Cup in '83. We speak about Bolton's Ashes as well. But the '99 World Cup, if not Fallon Donald, would have been considered Lance Klusener as well. So Lance
Sorry, I didn't get your pick over there. Your audio kind of broke up a bit.
Oh, sorry, Lance Klusener at number 7.
Great, Lance Klusener. Another almost forgotten from the modern generation, but yeah. And
Sorry,
having a tough time.
Viren, I might have to raise an objection. I don't think number 7 is in his top 3 positions.
Nice, Merl. I like it.
All right. I didn't see his number 3. I'm surprised he's better than number 3 on 25 occasions. Okay, Harry, I'll have to change that. My number 7, and this might be a left field pick, but if we are playing in the subcontinent, I need a spinner in the Ravi Jadeja at number 7 for me. At number 7.
Ravindra Jadeja. A very versatile player. Sometimes called bits and pieces, but sometimes that bits and pieces gets the job done. So we have another very great pick over here. 3 very strong all-rounders so far. People who are competent with the ball and bat. Now, the question is, does Merl follow in this suit, or do we go a slightly different route here? Merl, your number 7 pick.
In a way, I think Viren rid me of my misery. I was absolutely torn between Jadeja and the pick that I'm going to make right now. But before that, I'm going to give a few shout outs to some of the players that I'm not picking. So at number 7, I was considering Sean Pollock. I was considering Abdul Razak. I was considering the pick which has already been made, Kapil Dev. But at number 7, and Hari, if you can verify this, that he actually qualifies, that would be great, and might be a surprise pick. And I'm happy because this player now cannot be stolen from me because I have the 4th pick. I'm going to go with Wasim Akram.
Wasim Akram, one of my personal favorites. And interesting enough, so a little bit of story time over here for me. But during the Asia Cup, I made it a point that I sat right behind the comm box just to get a glance of my hero, Wasim Akram. An absolutely brilliant fast bowler visitor, someone who, as a left-arm fast bowler myself in school, I modeled my action after him. I was hunting for his clips, left, right, and center to make sure, I could bowl just as well as him. Let me just go ahead and verify that pick.
Yeah, Harry.
He's all good, Harry.
Good.
Oh, good. That's great. So we have 4 very interesting picks. Interesting to see Pakistan getting into the picture over here after being slightly neglected with the top 6, but 4 great picks. If I was to say a personal favorite over here, I think it's obvious, Wasim Akram. But anyways, moving forward with number 8, we're going to kick things off again with Merl. Your choice.
I mean, I didn't verify the Lance Klusener stat for no reason. I know I'm in the danger of being stolen away by Mark Onick, but I'm going with Lance Klusener at 8.
Lance Klusener. Someone's going to give me a headache on the spelling over here, but let's just stick to this for now while I verify. But yeah, a great choice from yesteryear. I think perhaps from one of the golden eras of, in my personal opinion, of ODI cricket, back then growing up, when you thought of the best ODI knocks, it was in this era of cricket, that late 90s kind of era where you had a lot of great innings, a lot of great players. Iconic jerseys also, to come and think about it. But yeah, great choice.
I also want to add as one last thought, in making some of my picks, one thing I also considered was what in modern parlance called range hitting. People when they hit, they stay hit. So I have David Miller, I have Andrew Simons, and I have Lance Krusner. So when they hit ball, like they have like, I mean, they hit absolutely enormous boundaries, and I think like it will be naturally like portable across any eras, and especially they would thrive in the modern game.
Great choice. So now moving forward with number 8, Viren, your pick.
Okay, so I'll tell you where the toss up is. It's either Chaminda Vaas or Shane Warne for me. But provided that I know that I used all my chips, used all my wild cards, and that the likelihood of getting the man with the most number of ODI wickets at number 11 might not be a probability, I want to cover my spin department early on and have Shane Warne at number 8.
Shane Warne, the man. Again, interesting enough, as I started playing cricket, I thought for some reason that I'd be a great leg spinner. And, I was scouring the internet for clips of Shane Warne and how he did his work. And it didn't go to waste, though, because picked up his tricks on Google, used to bowl a neat little leg cutter. So worked out in the end for me as well. But great choice over there, an absolute rock star of the game, if you ask me the best way to describe Shane Warne, he was a spinner with the attitude of a fast bowler. I think it's hard to deny that, someone who really rocked the game and, brought that energy with him. And also a great captain and great leader. I think a lot of us sometimes kind of forget, but great choice over there. Continuing with number 8, Mark, your choice.
I had exactly the same dilemma, Vaz or Ward. And I'm basically, do you know what? I'm just going to steal him. I'm going to use my steal card and steal Shane Ward because I had Sachin stolen off me.
That's the law of proportionality, right? I steal a greater of Mark and Mark steals Shane Ward off me. That's fine.
And also, I like to think, I never met Shane Ward, but from what you read about him, I like to think the idea that he was stolen to play for your side would motivate him even more. Like he'd use that to galvanise himself. Even more. Like we wanted him in the team so much, we stole him. So yeah, there we go. He's in my side now. Whoop.
So great, a little bit of drama over here. Anyway, so we've already discussed Shane Warne over there. So anyway, moving on with our next number 8 pick, we have Nick. Your choice.
Yeah, before I get to my pick, I'm just going to say Warne and Flintoff in the same team together, Marky. That's dangerous. That smells a sort of night out gone wrong, not making the field on the day.
We're going to make it a pedo-free area, right?
I am going to keep mixing things up, and I am going to steal Merl's Klusner. I would have loved to... I'd have loved to have had Wasim here, but I feel like I need a left-handed batter because I'm very right-hander heavy. Klusner holds a special place in my heart. The first World Cup I really remember is 99, where he set the thing on fire. I think if he was around today, he'd probably be striking at like 130 in ODIs. And he bowls, he's got great change-ups. He can bowl at the middle, bowl at the back end. So I think he's going to complement, hopefully, the rest of my attack quite nicely.
Great 2 choices and great 2 steals over here. So let's go to our victims over here, and we'll go in the past order. Viren, you want to discuss your replacement over here?
I mean, when you think of your all-time great spinners, you have 3 names that pop up: Shane Warne, Saqlain Mushtaq, and Muthaiya Muralidharan. And I'll go with Saqlain Mushtaq at number 8 for me. I've checked, I've verified this. He's only had 10 innings at number 8, but that meets the criteria required. That's his third most prominent position. So Saqlain Mushtaq at number 8.
Saqlain Mushtaq, a great spinner. Interesting, 2 great spinners in the number 8 position. Merl, your replacement?
Viren not almost. Viren stole my pick from my next round. So Saqlain Mushtaq was going to be in my next round, but now I'm actually out of options. I hadn't honestly thought through what if my Lance Krusner pick gets stolen. But I do have some options. But with this pick, I'm probably going to weaken my betting. But I'm going to go full retro, absolute legend, go to the early 1980s and pick. So one of the things I want to highlight before I make the pick is that, so given how the game has changed, the stats, especially the bowling strike rate, does not reflect how great of a bowler he was. But in the early 80s, with that four-quarter bowling attack of the West Indies, he was absolutely lethal. And if you go by the average, is an obvious pick. I'm going with the big man himself, Joya Garner.
Nice, Merl.
I was waiting for when the that four-pronged attack would make their debut into this draft over here. A great choice over there. One of those iconic fast bowlers and one of the fast bowlers you actually fear. And especially props to a lot of the batsmen that faced him in that era. You're facing him with very minimal amounts of protection that you would now, and at the speeds that they were bowling, it's truly commendable to go up there and face them. So with that, we have our number 8s locked in. So we're getting into the final few slots here. We've seen dashing batsmen, we've seen a lot of great all-rounders, and now we're going to get into territories of mean bowlers, who really spun headaches for a lot of batsmen. And to kick off the number 9 round, we have Mark. Your choice.
I'm going to go with someone whose name's already been mentioned. I'm surprised he hasn't been picked already. Obviously, I want to give my team a bit of a Sri Lankan biased twist feel. It was one of Sri Lanka's most ever, if not most consistent seam bowler. That's Chaminda Vaas.
Chaminda
Would you say, Nick, that he was our most consistent ever seamer?
I reckon, man.
Yeah.
When you think about his longevity as well, I mean, he was around forever, wasn't he? From what sort of 15-year career?
Yeah, the sadness for me, and I don't know if you had a similar thought at the time, Merl, was that they just kind of dropped him and retired him from the team, and I just felt like he still had a bit more to give. He could have, but the one thing I would say is that did mean that we never saw him in decline as well, right? And the thing that's kind of forgotten and not spoken enough about him, I think, is how good he was with the bat as well. Actually, I mean, realistically, if this team was taking the pitch, you'd probably bat him at 8, not at 9. But you got to work. You got to work within the boundaries that are set.
Great choice over there, Sri Lankan legend, an ODI legend as well. Moving on with number 9, we have Nick. Your choice.
I am gonna stick to the theme of Sri Lankan legends. I had him penciled in at number 11. Number 9 is incredibly high for him, but I think he just about qualifies. It's the man himself, Murali, and I'm gonna protect him straight off the bat. I think what was really interesting when doing a bit of research for this was there are absolutely loads of seam bowlers who you can pick, but there are 3 spinners in Murali, Warne and Saqlain who are just like miles ahead of the rest, and I'm really worried about someone taking him before me and being left without a good spinning option. I would have liked to have picked a left armour here. I think I might be left without a left armour in my attack, but to get Murali in there, it's worth it.
Great choice. It's hard to deny his greatness in cricket as a whole, and especially in ODI as well. Someone who faced a lot of hardships as well. Early on in his career, but still persevered and became the legend he is. Moving on to our next pick at number 9, we have Merl. Your choice.
I mean, Nick was absolutely correct that the 3 spinners who pop up when you do your background research, Saqlain, Warne and Murali. And I don't have a lot of options, but I still need a spinner in my team. And knowing that this player is not going to be stolen, and based on the strike rates at least, he's probably at the top if you remove Rashid Khan for some of the reasons regarding the quality of his opposition and so on. I think the 2 players after Rashid Khan, and shout out to Ajantha Mendis. Ajantha Mendis is still, in terms of strike rate, at the very top. even before the play I'm going to mention. But for reasons, he was eventually quote unquote solved, and I can't, with a clear conscience, put him in an all-time 11 because of that. I'm going to pick. He's not having the greatest of World Cup so far, but I think some left arm spin is going to be useful, and this is might feel like an odd fit in an all-time draft. I'm going to go with Kuldeep Yadav.
Kuldeep Yadav, very interesting choice there. Um, someone who is, even being a wrist spinner is very different to a lot of other wrist spinners around in the game. In the way he bowls, the way he strategizes innings, but someone who produces brilliant spells and brilliant, even individual deliveries. I think it's still very hard to forget his amazing delivery to Babar Azam in 2019 World Cup. Spun tremendously and caught absolutely bamboozled Babar Azam over there. Anyways, moving on to our final chooser for number 9, Viren, your choice.
Thanks, Harry. And I know this might be a promotion in his books, but who can forget the Melbourne Miracle, where he kept Angelo Matthews going at one end, and I wanted to have some Sri Lankan flair here. We had a bit of a discussion on who the greatest seamer was in Sri Lanka. I think Chaminda Wasp is undoubtedly our best, but Lasith Malinga is on the same bracket, undoubtedly our second best. So Lasith Malinga at number 9 for me, with a promotion as well. I didn't expect to see Malinga and Murali at number 9, but Nick and I had to jump in there and get our best picks out of the way. So, yep. And Harry, I've realized that I've had consecutive picks twice now if I go first for number 10. So it might only be fair for me and Nick to swap for number 10 and for Nick to go first with the number 10 pick. And I'll go in third.
Viren, can I just make a point there? Can I just make one point there? You said Malinga, was up there in the seed conversation. The thing is actually in every other cricket culture in the world, they have 2 types of bowlers. They have seamers, they have spinners. In Sri Lanka, we have 3 types. We have seamers, we have spinners, and we have slingers. And obviously, Lasith is the first kind of slinger, as it were. But I mean, since him, we've already seen at least 2 others. And dare I say, if you come back and look at Sri Lankan cricket in 20 years' time, there'll be many, many more. I mean, like in terms of, we could look at every single player on this board and they've all had some impact on cricket. But I mean, there's a big argument that in terms of the kind of the action, the physicality of the game and the way it's played, almost no one will have had as big as impact as Malinga has had, because he's totally changed the game. I mean, you can say, Shane Warne brought spin back or whatever. But Malinga's, he's like Batman, and he's created a million other little Batmans as well, isn't he? With his action.
Yeah. I think, he's someone else who's very interesting to see his trajectory throughout his career. Starting off this very young guy, bowling at 150 clicks, this weird action, it was an absolute nightmare to face him. And as age caught on with him, you saw him evolve, as a bowler, become more crafty, introduce those slow deliveries, be more tactful. And, it's just a great career overall. I think, it's very hard to pinpoint a certain era where he was not lethal and effective for one reason or the other. So it's a great pick over there.
Can I also make a small observation? Because I think this person has a case for the greatest fast bowler of all time, and he's not going to show up, and he's going to become ineligible beyond this point, because based on our rules, he becomes ineligible. So we haven't picked Mitchell Starc here. He had 2 absolutely brilliant World Cups, and even based on the stats, I think he's right up there. And after number 9 position, based on our rules, he's not going to be eligible, but just wanted to give a quick shout out to Mitchell Starc.
Yeah, another absolute legend of the game. One of the great 2 Mitchells of Australia, along with Johnson over there. But someone who's brilliant when it comes to World Cups, who always brings his A game. But yeah, anyways, moving on to number 10 to kick things off. Nick, your first choice.
Are you guys sure I should be first here? Because I'm due in first at 11 as well.
we don't mind, because I've just realized that
Yeah.
you're the only one who hasn't had too many first picks. So you can have 10 and 11.
Okay, nice. That's amazing. Well, I mean, I'm slightly scuppered here. I had Malinga lined up, and when he went, I would have liked to have picked Bumrah, but he's ineligible at 10, as well as is Mitchell Stark, that Merl just laid out. So I'm kind of going down my list of fast bowlers, but there's plenty who I like, and I'm going to go for another Jamaican, sticking to my roots, Mr. Whispering Death, Michael Holding.
Michael Holding, another, one of those deadly West Indian fast bowlers.
Can we double check though, Nick? I think Bumrah is eligible at 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, is he? But he's played 27 of 46 at 11, though, Merl. Oh, and he hasn't hit the 50 ODI either.
I mean, 50 ODI is fine for both bowlers if they played 50 ODIs. They don't need to have batted for 50 ODIs.
Okay, can I take Bumrah at 10?
Bumrah is available, yes.
Okay, I feel bad on Mikey because I love him. But yeah, I'm gonna betray my roots and go with Bumrah. I think he just adds a little X factor. He can bowl at any phase of the innings, and I mean, he's electric, isn't he?
Yeah, absolute amazing player. I think again, going back to last Asia Cup, watching his spells, and I made it a point to get as close to as straight as possible to simulate exactly how the batsman would have faced him. And it's honestly unplayable, some of the deliveries he bowls. It really ingrains a high level of respect that a lot of these international players have to go through to face someone like Bumrah. The angles it comes at, the speed, and then the craftiness which he carts into it as well. Undeniably a modern great when it comes to ODI cricket. And moving on with number 10, we have Merl. Your choice.
Yeah, this is probably one of the toughest picks for me. Not because I don't have players, but I have too many players to pick from. I'll just run through some of the options that I have. So you have the current legend, even though he's out of form these days, Shaheen Shah Afridi at 10 available. But I already have left-arm Pakistan seamer in my lineup. I also have, I think, shout out to Shane Bond. Those who used to watch early 2000s cricket would fondly remember how we used to rip through batting lineups and just traumatize Australians. I also have, speaking of Australians, Brett Lee available for selection, another absolute legend of the game. The two choices I honestly can't seem to pick between. It's either Mohammad Shami, because now he's proven again and again that he's one of the all-time great strike bowlers of the game. But I'm going to go full retro for the all-time save. I'm going to pair Wasim Akram with Wakayus.
Nice.
Wasim and Wakar. And going back to the Asia Cup recently, I was fortunate enough to have a little brief conversation with Wakar Yunis, and then get a quick photo snap with him. Someone who's one of the greatest bowlers. And it's incredible, to hear the story of his little finger as well. The stuff he bowled. And, I think it's really commendable also, because as a fast bowler in school, you realize how important your grip is in terms of bowling certain deliveries, and the fact that despite that little finger, he used to still go in and did what he did the way he did it was incredibly amazing. And again, partnering the two W's from Pakistan, Wasim and Wakar.
Also, Hari, if you read a bit of history, I've also read that, especially in Wasim's biography as well, where there seems to be some healthy competition between the two when they were bowling on either end. They want to almost outdo each other. So if I can bring that dynamic into my team, I think that's going to be quite nice as well.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have been a great thing for oppositions, two fiery fast bowlers trying to outdo themselves and, at the mercy of the batsman. But anyways, moving forward on the number 10 position, we are going to Viren. Your choice.
Yeah, I think this is the lowest seed I've been batting in a while. Used to bat at number 8 or number 9. We spoke about Mitchell Stark, but I'm going to go to the other Mitchell in that 2015 Australian side. And I'd go with Mitchell Johnson. Based off Mark's facial expressions, I assume Mark was leaning towards Mitchell Johnson as well at number 10?
No, I wasn't. I'm just an English guy as well, so I'm not overly impressed with either of the Mitchells, to be honest.
Right, yeah. So Harry Mitchell Johnson for me at number 10.
That's great. Another very fast bowler. There was a point in when I was a kid that, watching that little handlebar mustache, one of my goals in life was, be a pilot and have that little mustache. And yeah, so there's a bit of a nostalgia trip over there. But Mitchell Johnson, a great choice over there, So moving on to the final pick at number 10, Mark, your choice.
So in 1999, I got taken to a Cricket World Cup game in Manchester. It was my first time ever going to watch a World Cup game in Manchester. It was Australia versus the West Indies. I went with my father and some of his friends from Colombo who were over. And for Sri Lankans of my dad's generation, Australia versus the West Indies is like still to this day kind of one of the biggest games going, and this was the kind of tail end of the great West Indies side and the beginning of that kind of great Australian dynasty that was coming up. And it was just about, in some ways, it was just a kind of pass of the torch moment. Australia won the game. Glenn McGrath took a bag full of wickets, and Shane Warne was great. And I saw Brian Lara on display, but the person who stole my imagination, as it were, at that moment was Curtly Ambrose. So I'm going to pick him at 10. I think he's kind of forgotten because he came at the back end of the great dynasty, West Indian dynasty, but he held the he was a key part of the West Indies bowling attack for a very long time.
Great choice over there, getting back all the way to the back olden days, one of those great, again, very fast bowlers, and thinking of the eras that they bowled in as well. Absolutely phenomenal in what he did. So we are in our final round of this ODI all-time draft. A lot of interesting choices so far. Let's see how we finish things off. And to kick off the end, we have Nick, your final choice for the day.
So my final choice of the day is very much a head over heart pick. Not a cricketer who I've ever loved. I actually saw him at Lord's in the summer and I didn't even sort of stop and ask for a photo. But it shows how seriously I'm taking it. It's Glenn McGrath. I think, growing up in the 90s, he kind of stood probably above the rest in terms of fast bowling. I think his performance at World Cups is outstanding. He's got 71 wickets, which I think is more than anyone else at an average just a shade over 18. Proper put it on a sixpence line and length merchant. So I feel that he balances the rest of my attack quite nicely.
A great choice over there, really, as Nick said, great balance. Someone who's very particular about his line and length, and someone who my coach would often cite as an example of the kind of fast bowler you want to be, someone who was really dead accurate with line and length, still brought in, pace, bounce, and all the other factors in. To continue with the final picks, we have Mark, your choice at number 11.
I'm gonna pick someone who has already been mentioned, and I'm at fear. I'd be worried he could be stolen, but I think everyone's used their steals. I'm gonna pick Alan Donald.
Nice.
So we talked about '99 World Cup already. He's great. I suppose he's one of those players, a bit like Glenn McGrath. There's a few of them on our board actually. You probably wish they were playing cricket now because they'd have made absolute bucket loads of money, much more than they did back then. It's but we were all lucky enough to see him in his prime, or at least I was. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that 11. I think.
Yeah, a great 11 over there. Good mix of retro and kind of modern retro, as I would like to term it. Interesting enough, not just one pick from this current kind of modern, current playing 11s, but yeah, a great choice either way. Moving, and also just to add a small side note, a current Sri Lankan favorite with regards to the whole Shakib incident, Alan Donald voicing out his opinion on the whole matter. Moving on,
he stands with Matthews, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. And to round to our second last pick for the day, Viren, your choice at number 11.
Right. So I was torn between three picks. I could have gone retro. I could have gone to yesteryear with Dennis Lilly. I have Curtly Ambrose. I had Curtly Ambrose in the mix until Mark nicked Curtly Ambrose off me. And then I have Shoaib Akhtar. And if you look at pace, I would like to see Mitchell Johnson and Shoaib Akhtar bowling in tandem with Lasith Malinga coming in there as the third seamer. So that sounds very, very tempting. And then you have Jadeja and Mushtaq, who could be the spin twins in the middle stages. And then you have Ben Stokes, who could chip in if required. So it's between Shoaib Akhtar and Dennis Lilly for me. But I'll go with Shoaib Akhtar. I think that rounds up my 11 as well.
Great choice over there. And as a bit of a kind of fast bowling nerd that I am, someone who has a very similar biomechanical action to Lasith Malinga in the fact that they both use a sling mechanism, although it's not too obvious with Akhtar. But a fiery ball, extreme pace. I think I think it's a lot of fast bowlers around the world. It's their ambition to kind of beat that mark, and someone someone who's quite active in terms of his cricket opinions, even in the present day. Someone who's quite entertaining to listen to as well. A fiery pace attack there from Viren. Three very scary bowlers to face, if I'm being honest. But yeah, a great lineup we have there. And Merl, the final pick for the day.
I feel I have myself some fiery bowlers in my lineup, but I think I want to add to the fear, if I'm really being honest. uh, I I noticed that I don't have a, not that I have to, but New Zealand in my 11. So I was also leaning towards Trent Bolt, but I think I have the solid left arm seamer covered with Wasim Akram, even though they could be doing different things as well. And Alan Donald had, Alan Donald was going to be my first pick, but Mark stole Alan Donald from me. And of the options left, I think I'm going to go with absolute breakneck space of Brett Lee.
So no lack for pace in these four 11s over here. You have enough and more pace to go around. So yeah, again, one of those great bowling legends. If you are a fast bowler growing up, it's at some point or the other you have tried to emulate his action. I mean, if you haven't, are you really a fast bowler? I think that's the question you ask yourself. But great choice over there. And with that, we have our 4 11s. Four different 11s. And what's interesting is we discussed recency bias at the start of the episode, and I think it's kind of almost completely negated over here. I think you had a reverse bias acting in here. And I think very few players from the modern game in these 11s as a whole, but great 11s nonetheless. So I'm going to pose each of y'all a question over here. Leaving aside your 11s, which one do you think is the strongest in these amongst the three remaining? We'll start things off with Mark, your choice.
Sorry, just to be clear, so we are ignoring our own 11, we are picking between the three.
Yes, ignoring your own 11s. Yeah, to remove any bias whatsoever.
I think Viren's 11 is actually the strongest, right? Mainly because he stole Sachin off me, and then he used his protection to get AB in, and I think kind of player for player, it'd be the one, if you go along it wins most of the key battles, right?
Yeah, I think brilliantly said. Yeah, all around, very iconic names in each of those positions. On paper, a very strong side, a very deadly side, and surprisingly still a very kind of versatile in a lot of these players' kind of roles that they can play. So it's very balanced as well. Moving on, since Mark chose Viren, your thoughts on the strongest 11 aside from yours?
Oh, all the other three 11s look brilliant, and I think that's the beauty of this draft, right? I think all four of us would have had these 44 players somewhere in the mix. Special mentions to the likes of Shakib Al Hassan, Trent Bolt, who missed out in all of our 11s. I think there was recency bias there for exclusion when it came to Shakib Al Hassan. Had we had this last week or 2 weeks ago, quite a few of us would have had him in our 11s. But all three look brilliant. And I think if you look at Mark's 11, that bowling attack sends shivers. Like no one would want to face that bowling attack when you have Curtly Ambrose, Alan Donald running in tandem, and then you have Chaminda Vas with the new ball. Kapil Dev and Shane Warne in there as well. And that's a stacked batting lineup. It's nice to see Ganguly and Jayasuriya at the top. And if you take Nick's 11 as well, like look at number 5, 6, 7, 8 there, like match winners on their day. And then arguably the strongest bowling attack with Murali, Jasprit, and Glenn McGrath having 30 overs amongst themselves. And you have Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, and Gale at the top. And yeah, Merl's 11 looks stellar as well. I think there was a bit more of a retro impact there, which going back to the likes of Joel Gardner, Waqar Younis, Wasim Akram. But you have the likes of Viv Richards and Arvind at the top. So, Harry, this is a tough question to answer. But if I had to really go out of my way and pick one, purely because of that bowling attack, I might have to go with Nick's.
So Nick gets his choice here. So continuing with our last pattern, Nick, your choice for the strongest 11 here.
It's a tough choice because they're all great 11s and I love them all. But I think I'm going to answer it on pure vibes, and I'm going to go with Merl's because it's got players who I love in there. It's got Dilshan at the top. It's got Viv at 3, Aravindra at 4, Andrew Simons at 5, who I think is one of the most underrated ODI players in history. And then that bowling attack is just tantalizing for me. You've got the 2 Pakistani greats. You've got Big Bird, Joel Garner coming off about 14 feet. And then you've got the express pace of Brett Lee. So, yeah, this team holds a kind of romantic, evocative appeal for me. So by a narrow margin, I've gone with Merl.
So 3 choices over here, 3 different choices. And to end things off, Merl, do you pick Nick or Viren and give one of them the edge over here? Or do we go with Mark and level the playing field?
I think so I think one of the biases operating, and this was evident in Mark's response as well. If your favorite player got stolen, you are bound to favor that team to be coming up on top. And I think I'm going to have the same bias, but that is not the only reason. Just like Viren said, just look at that middle order. Look at Joss Butler, Glenn Maxwell, and Imran Khan, and Lance Klusner. I mean, what can that batting lineup not do? And when you add Jasprit Bumrah and Muralidharan to the mix, along with the suffocating pace of Glenn McGrath, I think it's hard to look beyond Nick's 11. I'm going to go with Nick's.
Great choice over there. So, in terms of our 4 guests and our 4 participants here, it seems like Nick has the strongest 11 over here. And if I was to choose mine, and this is very biased, being a hardcore MS Dhoni fan, I'll have to go with Mark's over here. Aside from being an MS Dhoni fan, I'm also a sucker for a lot of these old players because a lot of their clips online on YouTube are what I grew up watching and appreciating the game for. So that factor of nostalgia is in there. And also it is a very formidable lineup over here. You have very strong opening batsmen. You have, a great middle order over there. All 3 of them have proven tremendously great and a very good bowling lineup as well. But anyway, guys, let us know your thoughts as well. These are all our thoughts, and let us know if you have some players that you thought deserved a shot up here in this top 44. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Eye on Cricket. It was great to have Nick and Mark on board. Unfortunately, Mark had to drop off a bit earlier, but still it was great to have him for as long as he did. Again, special thanks to Nick and Mark. Do check out their stuff, all the stuff they tweet, and the Murali pod for their kind of takes on world cricket. And until next time, it is all of us signing off from the Eye on Cricket.